As crazy as it sounds, the Wisconsin primary and other down ballot elections will take place with in person voting in Wisconsin this Tuesday. I believe it's April 7th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but these days during shelter in place and just this whole coronavirus pandemic thing has me a little bit of loss for the days and whatnot, but it's this Tuesday anyway. So the governor finally started to take some action to try to postpone or delay the elections that are going to be taking place in Wisconsin this Tuesday. He called basically a emergency session for the Wisconsin House of Representatives, which is controlled by the Republican Party, to meet to figure out a way to delay or postpone these elections, which obviously makes complete and total sense, and something that this Democratic governor, Democratic Tony Evers, should have done way sooner, in my opinion. So it would basically what Evers was calling for was to allowing voters to mail in their votes or ballots, I should say, up to May 26th instead of having people have to vote in person during a pandemic where people are obviously told to practice social distancing, shelter in place, stay away from large groups of people, don't go out if it's absolutely necessary. And obviously, voting's really important, but if there's a way to get these ballots to people's houses, to their apartments, to where they live, so they don't have to potentially risk their lives to go out and exercise this really important franchise. It seems like that's the reasonable and rational response that obviously takes into account people's health, the health of the public, the health of the community. Why would the Wisconsin GOP, why would these Republican lawmakers be against this? And obviously the very easy answer is that it's a form of voter suppression. They're banking on the strategy that if they're able to suppress voter turnout to such an extent that it'll be to their advantage, and that's why they're doing this. And obviously it's really sick and disgusting that they're playing these political games in the midst of a very serious and dangerous public health crisis that we're experiencing due to the coronavirus outbreak that we're experiencing. So Representative Tyler August, this is from Common Dream, Representative Tyler August convenes and adjourns the State Assembly in 17 seconds, and declines to take any action on delaying Tuesday's election as requested by Governor Tony Evers because of COVID-19. I mean, this is just some of these, Republican Congress people, whether it's on a state, local, or a national level, are just, some of the most despicable, say that 5 times fast, despicable and just disgusting and immoral people, and yet they are in these positions of power. They are not willing to allow people to mail in their ballots. They would rather have them potentially go out and die. It's just, I'm almost at a loss of words. It's so disgusting and disturbing. And then this is again from Common Dreams. According to Politico, Evers is not expected to take any further action to stop Wisconsin voters from having to either assemble at a dwindling number of polling places on Tuesday, and a lot of them have been closed, as well as, there's going to be a total shortage of election workers because it's a pandemic. People don't want to go help out for an election during a pandemic. That's nuts. Risking contracting and spreading the coronavirus or waiving the right to vote in the primary and other key elections. Let's see. And then check this out. This is even just further evidence of the Wisconsin GOP's just complete and utter contempt and disgust for human life. Wisconsin GOP is willing to go to the U.S. Supreme Court to make sure people don't have enough time to return absentee ballots. My mentions have been full of, this is from Dan Schaefer on Twitter, my mentions have been full of people who requested ballots weeks ago and have not yet received them. This is the response to a life-threatening pandemic, ? I mean, again, it's just an effort by these Republican lawmakers, the Wisconsin GOP, to suppress the vote, to make sure voter turnout is at as low amount as humanly possible. That's why they want it to go forward during this pandemic, because they are, again, are making the political calculation that it's to their benefit to do so. And again, it's, it just shows the lengths that some people in power, particularly these Republicans in Wisconsin in this case, are willing to take to gain some type of political advantage, even if it means telling people that it's okay to go out and vote during a fucking pandemic where they could potentially contract the coronavirus. And if, they're older folk, or if they have compromised immune system, that could lead to them dying, or they could catch it, be asymptomatic, and give it to somebody else who's one of those, vulnerable populations. Again, it just shows a complete disregard for human life and any type of, moral decency. They're putting their own political gains and calculations above human life, and they're supposed to be the party that's pro-life. It's a crock of shit, obviously. It's a crock of shit. And then this is again from Common Dreams. Evers is reportedly concerned that taking further steps to halt in-person voting could backfire, according to Politico. If the issue went before Wisconsin Supreme Court, which holds a Republican majority, Evers risks inadvertently creating a precedent that could adversely affect his emergency powers. Beyond that, the governor's office doesn't want to expend all of its political capital in a fight over moving the election because the GOP legislative leaders, because it needs the GOP legislative leaders to play ball in the broader coronavirus funding package. I mean, it's disgusting. And, Wisconsin, as this article points out, has had a stay-at-home order since March 25th. I mean, come on. Jesus Christ. And then this is kind of interesting, too. So, in addition to the Democratic presidential primary between Sanders and former VP Biden, Wisconsin voters on Tuesday will cast ballots in several local elections and the state Supreme Court race between conservative Justice Daniel Kelly and liberal Jill Karofsky. A victory for Kelly would secure the 5-2 conservative majority on the court, as President Donald Trump suggested last week. Low voter turnout due to the pandemic could help secure Kelly's seat. So again, there it is. The Republicans in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin GOP, are okay with people going out and voting during this pandemic because they don't think a lot of people will do it, rightfully so, because it's a fucking pandemic, obviously, and they're thinking that these lower voter turnouts will help, get cement this, further, right-wing justice will get, reelected to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and that's what they care. That's what they care about, is their political power, and it's again really disgusting. And then so this is, again, goes to some of the just logistics of how there is going to be so many less polling stations for people to vote at. Molly Beck on Twitter. Milwaukee election officials just announced the city will have just 5 polling stations. 5 for Tuesday's election instead of the 180 they typically do amid a massive poll worker shortage. Again, makes sense. Poll workers, people in general, aren't going to want to go out and volunteer their time to help out during election day, during a pandemic, where we're being told by the CDC and all these public health agencies and doctors and public health experts, etc., to stay home, to shelter in place, to practice social distancing, to self-isolate. And again, this could have been easily prevented by postponing the election and making sure everybody could vote by mail. That makes complete and utter and total sense. The Wisconsin GOP does not give a shit about you. They don't care if you live or you die. They aren't pro-life. All they care about is cementing their political power and their political advantages. And again, it's hugely disgusting, disturbing, and immoral. Up to 50,000 MKE voters are expected to vote, which means 10,000 can show up to each site. I mean, so again, there's going to be huge, long lines at these polling stations. People are going to be in close proximity. They're going to have to be waiting. They're going to have to be waiting inside sometimes. The pandemic's going to spread through that. It's going to lead to more death and suffering and pain and misery. But the Wisconsin GOP, they don't give a shit about that. They don't care if you, again, they don't care if you live or you die. They aren't the pro-life party. They're the party of protecting their own interests, no matter if it means killing people along the way. Yeah, and then meanwhile, state health officials have asked people to not be in contact with more than 5 people total. I mean, it's hugely infuriating and maddening and disgusting on every level, and I totally don't blame anybody if they don't go out and vote for Bernie or this, supposed liberal justice that's running against Kelly for that Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. I wouldn't be willing to, sacrifice my health to go out and vote. Luckily, we've already had our, primary election here in Washington State, and it's a vote by mail, which is, obviously super helpful. Everybody should have that ability if they choose. They should, everybody in the U.S. should be able to vote by mail. You shouldn't have to go to a polling station if you don't want to, especially during a pandemic, obviously. So, just really disgusting and disturbing. Anyways, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Peace. Much love.